Hello everyone, welcome back TV Spoilers. In Genoa City, as anonymous messages and carefully edited clues keep the entire town living on a constant edge, Matt is no longer just a fugitive. He is turning into a deliberate stormsman who knows exactly where to plant fear, so that people lose their direction on their own. This time, however, the chaos isn't only inside the powerful families being dragged into the spiral. A shocking reversal is beginning to tighten like a noose round Matt himself, forcing him toward a dead end made even sharper by Annie's quiet but relentless opposition. The more cornered he feels, the more violent and cruel he becomes. And that is precisely what pushes Annie into a state she can no longer endure. She can't tell where her terror of being killed ends and where her disgust at the brutality in front of her begins. Worse, guilt grows heavier with every breath because she knows she is helping keep a monster alive. Annie is not a stranger to darkness, but there has always been a boundary she believed she would never cross, becoming part of a plan to erase human beings as if they were obstacles. When Matt targets Sienna and Noah, he doesn't sound impulsive, he sounds decided, as though he solved this equation long ago and marked their names as the final answer. Annie is trapped between two choices that both taste like blood. If she resists, she knows the price won't be a simple punishment, it could be immediate death, cold and silent before anyone can reach her. If she obeys, she becomes the one who opens the door to another crime. And this time she can't hide behind the excuse of not knowing. That conflict makes Annie feel as if she's being strangled from the inside. She looks at Matt and no longer sees only a threat or a partner in survival. She sees a force of violence that can drag everything into the abyss, including her. The worst part is her helplessness. She cannot stop him fast enough. And that helplessness turns guilt into a sharp, relentless ache. News and subtle signs from the current developments suggest that Annie ultimately has to follow Matt's orders, not because she agrees, but because survival is winning moment by moment in her body. Matt sets the trap he knows best. He makes others act for him, makes them become his hands, so that if the truth explodes later, responsibility can be twisted, spread out, and finally dropped onto the person who is easiest to destroy. Annie understands this perfectly, but understanding doesn't free her. She is forced to help Matt move Sienna to another location in a relocation that looks, on the surface, like hiding or handing her off, but is actually a multi-layered setup inside Matt's mind. He can pretend he plans to deliver Sienna to someone else, even create the illusion that the nightmare is close to ending as if he is shedding his burden before vanishing. But Annie senses the more terrifying truth. In Matt's head, handing her off is only a middle step, a smoke screen. His real goal is something final and extreme, something that seals every loose end and prevents any counterattack from the past. Sienna is not the type to sit quietly and wait for fate. Her panic doesn't fully paralyze her, it becomes a survival reflex, especially when she realizes that moving locations means being pushed farther away from any chance to be seen, heard, or found. In a desperate struggle, that resistance erupts raw and terror-feeding. In that chaos, she accidentally scratches Matt's lip. It's a small wound, but it hits his warped pride like a match to gasoline. There isn't much blood, but it's enough to flip a switch in him. He shifts from cold calculation into eruptive violence, as if he has been waiting for an excuse. He wraps his hands around Sienna's throat not merely to restrain her, but to prove absolute dominance over a life he believes he owns. Annie watches, frozen. She is terrified, sickened, and fighting the instinct to intervene while knowing one wrong move could make her the next victim. In Matt's eyes at that moment, there is no ordinary threat, there is naked cruelty. A hunger for control, a willingness to cross every line just to force silence. Sienna survives the chokehold, but fear changes shape. It stops being a vague terror of a bad ending and becomes a specific certainty that death can arrive in the next second, triggered by a movement, a breath, a single act of defiance. That clarity makes Sienna shake, but it also sharpens her mind. She realizes that if there is any chance left, it lies in stretching time, creating small errors, tiny delays that might allow someone outside to reach her before Matt completes his intent. And outside, the Newman family is not standing still. Even with information arriving in fragments, even with Matt deliberately blurring every trail, they keep building a rescue plan with stubborn faith that good news is still possible, that they can get there before everything becomes irreversible. Victor does not choose emotional, impulsive reactions. He knows Matt cannot be crushed by strength alone. Matt must be stripped of the chaos he uses as armor. Victor pushes a tighter surveillance strategy on that isn't just find the location, but rebuild the behavioral pattern, anticipate routes, identify likely hiding points, and most importantly, predict the moment Matt will feel most confident. Victor's plan is an invisible net, stretched and patient, waiting for the prey to step into it. Nick takes command of the action side, keeping everyone focused and cutting down mistakes born from fear. Nick understands what Matt always exploits: panic makes people reveal themselves. So Nick tightens the formation, compartmentalizes information, ensures each person knows only what they need to know so Matt can't read their rhythm. Meanwhile, Annie becomes the most dangerous and essential link in the chain. She is forced to obey, but her obedience is no longer simple submission. Inside Annie, every step that carries Sienna farther feels like a blade cutting into her conscience. She begins to consider something she once refused to imagine: if she cannot stop Matt directly, she must turn obedience into a way of bending his plan off course. But doing that with Matt constantly close is like walking on the edge of a knife. Annie has no right to fail. A glance held too long, a sudden breath, an unnecessary movement, any of it could signal betrayal. And betraying Matt is not losing trust, it is signing her own death warrant. That tension creates suffocating air everywhere. Sienna is terrified, but forces herself to stay alert. Annie is torn between survival and morality. Matt becomes more violent as he feels trapped. The Newmans grow more determined and therefore more careful. Everything is racing toward a collision point where a single small error could detonate tragedy. Annie starts to understand the truly horrifying part. It isn't only that Matt kills, it's that he drags others into his crimes, turns them into living proof of his control. And as Annie grasps that, her guilt becomes something else as well: a quiet resolve. If she has any chance of surviving, she must find a way to break the loop, not only to save Sienna, but to prevent Matt from pulling more people into the abyss. That night, as Victor's surveillance begins to close in, as Nick orders every line of tracking tightened, and as Annie is forced to guide Sienna along the route Matt chose, a small unexpected detail appears like an omen. Matt becomes too calm after his outburst, calm in the way of someone who can see the finish line, someone who no longer fears being chased. That calm chills Annie because it suggests Matt is preparing another pivot, another twist that could make the rescue plan meaningless. Annie realizes she is standing at the moment of decision: keep playing the obedient pawn to stay alive, or risk a subtle move to create a crack that allows the Newmans to reach Sienna, accepting that if Matt notices, she may be the first to disappear. And just as Annie weighs it, a distant signal makes her sense Victor's net may be close enough to touch, but it also means Matt may have smelled it too. And if Matt has smelled it, he won't run, will choose to end this in the bloodiest way possible, just to prove that no one can take control back from him. Noah and Sienna's situation has become the story's pressure point, tightening the entire plot until every breath the Newmans take feels like a race against time. Outside, Genoa City may keep moving as if nothing has changed, but inside the Newman orbit, everything has collapsed into a trapped, crisis-level standstill where every decision feels razor-edged. They are trying every possible way to save them, yet the harder they push for control, the clearer it becomes that Matt has designed the rules, set the tempo, and is willing to do anything to prove that other people's lives are nothing more than leverage in his hands. Noah continues to be consumed by fear for Sienna Bacall's safety, because Matt's demand is not simply about money, it is an ultimatum. $5 million within 1 hour is not a figure to negotiate and not a window that allows careful deliberation. It is a countdown clock planted between life and death, forcing Noah to confront the most primal kind of terror, powerlessness, while someone he cares about is being dragged into the dark. He cannot limit his thoughts to whether they should comply or refuse, because what truly horrifies him is the possibility that no choice is actually safe. Noah understands that Matt is pushing him into a no-exit position, where even transferring the money could be only the first step toward a brutal ending. Noah's obsession is not the number itself, but the question that repeats in his mind like a curse: what happens if Matt doesn't get the money on time? One small delay, one technical error, 1 minute lost could be enough for Matt to use it as justification to unleash violence on Sienna. Yet even if everything arrives on time, the fear does not disappear. Noah is torn apart by an even more merciless possibility that Matt might kill Sienna anyway, even after the transfer, simply to prove absolute power and erase any remaining loose ends. Every time Noah tries to cling to hope, another layer of suspicion slides in cold and heavy until hope becomes so fragile that he fears believing in it too much will only make the collapse more devastating. In that disorder, Nick does everything he can to keep Noah steady, not with empty reassurance but with the firm presence of a father who understands that if Noah breaks, the situation will become unmanageable. Nick knows Victor already has a plan to handle this, and he holds onto that plan like a support beam knit only to protect Sienna, but to protect Noah's mind from crumbling under the strain. Nick understands that sometimes what keeps a person standing is not a perfect answer, but the knowledge that there is still a direction, still a structure to lean on, while everything else is slipping out of reach. Even in panic, Noah is not blind. He realizes Victor's plan involves tracking Matt in some way, and that realization immediately creates a new layer of anxiety. Surveillance sounds like the logical path. Find the location, anticipate the next move, reach Sienna before it's too late. But Noah knows Matt is not someone who can be led easily. Matt is exceptionally skilled at sensing when he's being watched. He lives on the instincts of a predator, alert to the smallest shift in the air. In Noah's mind, tracking is not only a solution, it is also a risk. If Matt detects it, the consequence won't be merely a tactical setback. It could trigger instant retaliation, a violent warning meant to reassert control. And the first person to pay for it would be Sienna. In contrast to Noah's trembling fear, Victor holds a confidence that borders on ice-cold certainty. He believes he can carry out surveillance without Matt noticing, as if he has faced too many men like Matt to be shaken now. Victor's confidence is not ignorance of danger, it is faith in calculation and control. In eliminating error. In turning a situation that looks like chaos into a problem that can be solved. To Victor, panic is an enemy that must be neutralized immediately. Because panic makes people reveal themselves to the very threat they are trying to outrun. He does not need Noah to believe everything will be fine. He needs Noah to believe the Newmans are still moving first, still shaping the board, still capable of taking control back from Matt. When Nick updates Noah on Victor's strategy, it doesn't erase fear, but it reshapes fear into something Noah can survive. Noah is still terrified, still thinking of Sienna with every second. But at least he knows a plan is in motion, a system is moving, rather than a helpless wait for catastrophe. And in that moment, Nick makes a promise to his son, a promise not designed to soothe for a minute, but to stand as a vow from a father who has no choice but to become a shield. Nick reassures Noah that he will not let Sienna come to harm, that he will not let Matt dictate their family's outcome, and that in the end he will win. That reassurance is not magic, but it is the thread that keeps Noah from sliding into the abyss of despair, anger, that lets him keep breathing, keep standing, and keep believing that in a game Matt is trying to turn into pure fear, the Newmans can still force it back into a battle of will, strategy, and love for the person they are determined to bring home. The TV Spoilers channel reveals that I always seek inspiration for each video by compiling short video clips to analyze and offer my personal opinions. This channel specializes in analyzing, theorizing, and discussing plot points in the Young and the Restless series from the perspective of a longtime fan. Through this, viewers can gain deeper, more objective, and more interesting insights. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest news about the Young and the Restless series.